Which platform is best for free speech? I'm going to go with the big contenders right now. That would be Facebook, Google, or YouTube, and X or Twitter. That's Elon Musk's company. We're going to get into this article on The Hill, which is about pushing back on big social media companies and their censorship. Welcome to Doug in Exile. Thank you for watching. And of course, if you've watched this channel, then you already know that I speak all the time. I get 4 videos a day. There are obvious limitations to that, but you're not watching me right now on X. You're not watching me. Some are watching me on Facebook, but nowhere near as many as on YouTube. And Rumble, completely out of the question, a complete free speech joke, because yeah, they'll allow you to do and say more, but no one sees it. So it really doesn't matter. None of you would ever know if I ever posted something on Rumble or not. Here's the article. Social media court cases shows we must rein in bureaucrats to protect free speech. So this is a pushback on social media platforms and the bureaucracies at the government. The Supreme Court's decision in Murthy versus Missouri disappointed many Americans concerned about federal bureaucrats secretly coercing social media companies to censor free speech online. That's your government working with the free market to take away your free speech. They get away with it by using the free market, right? By leaning on social media companies, because a business can cut off your speech all they want. That's business. True censorship is when the government censors your speech. So if they do it through one of these free companies, everything's fine. They can tamper your free speech all they want. A 63 court held that the challenges lacked standing to bring their First Amendment claims because they had not shown a direct link between the government's pressure and the platform's actions. So the government would tell them, hey, we really want you to cut down on these articles about the pandemic and all that, or about Hunter Biden's laptop. And if they complied, all they had to do is prove that they freely complied and weren't coerced. But the decision should refocus attention on one solution for this and other bureaucratic overreach. We must reform the administrative state. During the COVID-19 pandemic, social media users saw mounting evidence that platforms were removing or reducing the reach of posts that questioned the government's claims. It actually went very far into removing them. And now, of course, they've reversed many of those standings at the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control even. And so now they've overreached and tamped down speech they should have let go. Even college professors and authors had their accounts blocked over actions as simple as sharing a Wall Street Journal article on Twitter. What we didn't know at the time was that the government bureaucrats were evidently pulling the strings, bullying the platforms to censor Americans' free speech. It was a little bit of bullying, but it was also invited by the platform. So Mark Zuckerberg invited it. The previous owner of Twitter before Elon Musk invited it. And of course, we all know, YouTube, we've all had many channels crushed and destroyed by YouTube right here on my home platform. This is my employer. This is where I make all my money. This is how I put my kids through college. So I have to be very careful what I say here, and that's fine. That's normal. Look, when I worked at Nickelodeon or worked for Disney, I couldn't walk in there and just start shooting my mouth off and saying anything I'd say. I couldn't just go in and say, "Hey, Trump is great," and shout it all day. They'd go, "You know what? You're fired." Now, in YouTube's defense, I've been able to share the gospel on this platform with more people than any other time in my life. That is, I tell people to repent to Jesus Christ, to turn their life over. I never got that liberty when I worked at Nickelodeon. I never got to do that at Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, video game companies. I never got that at Sony or Sega. I got it here on YouTube. Now, there's obviously the brand of free speech by technical terms. If you actually have the freedom to speak, is true that it's bigger on X under Elon Musk, Twitter, X. They allow you to do and say anything. And of course, then you go on your feed and there's like people being killed, hit by cars, drunk throwing up. There's a lot more porn, things like that. They are cracking down on porn, which I appreciate. But there's less policing of what you say. My problem with X is I've been on that platform since 2007, and they will not push your content out. That algorithm is not as good at connecting what you create with an audience that wants to see it. That's where YouTube beats everyone out, just as a tool of connecting content with an audience. There's no bigger, more powerful tool. Someone else may come up with one. There isn't one yet. And that's what I love about YouTube. They may not be as free with the brand, but with what they do allow you to say goes out to more people. And if mass media, if the mass counts for something, size of audience counts for your message, even though it's a slightly weaker message, YouTube wins free speech in my books. So I still love X, Facebook's just way out. They censor our content. They destroy everything. They are not good. They will never communicate with their users either. Much of this pressure campaign was secretive, more bully than pulpit. Social media platforms are a private business. The First Amendment restrains government and protects private citizens or organizations. But the allegations and the evidence in the Murthy case are that federal officials were violating those protections, just doing it indirectly. There you go. Much of what appeared to be social media platforms independently deciding to remove COVID-related content was really the government coercing and pressuring Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms to do what the First Amendment forbids the government from doing directly. This is why my colleague Cindy Crawford calls censorship by stealth. And by the way, I put Google on that list too, because if you ever look up pro-life stuff or put in the word abortion, there will be 20 articles will come out trying to connect people to clinics for you know what. And then buried way down there will be alternates like the centers, the crisis pregnancy centers that we support. But again, another way that YouTube helps is I take a percentage of my income and we tithe it, we give to charity. And I have directly funded crisis pregnancy centers. And there are children walking around now because of the money we donated because you watched. So free speech and pro-life rules. It can rule even on YouTube. Of course, none of these federal bureaucrats were actually tasked by Congress with the job of policing online speech. Congress has, no doubt to the chagrin of some, never passed a law empowering any agent to pressure social media companies to censor speech. But the evidence in Murthy is that dozens of executive branch employees nevertheless felt empowered to interfere with private citizens speaking in one another on private companies' platforms. That is, we have the FBI and the Justice Department directly emailing Twitter employees. This is pre-Musk, giving them accounts that they wanted removed or tamped down. Those emails came out in the Twitter files. So it's been documented. It's still legal. I think it's still bad when free speech is tampered, but a company is free to do what it wants with its platform. And that's what we're dealing with now is these companies are getting so big and the way we communicate is through these social media platforms that companies actually have a bigger effect on free speech even than our government. And so I really would challenge all of the social media platforms. Do you want your brand to be censorship or freedom? Do you want your brand to be you going in and micromanaging arguments people say, parties they prefer, positions they prefer? Or do you want them to be able to be more free to say things? There's always going to be a danger of more disinformation going out, and that's the way it goes. But just remember, Democrats call misinformation anything Republicans believe. Okay, they call Trump a tyrant and Nazi and Hitler. They would take him out if they could, using that same justification. So it's not that. I'm just saying in general, I think X and Elon Musk, his branding with Twitter has been more successful than most companies at the brand being free speech. I just don't think the speech goes very far. But I could say anything I want on that platform too. What do you guys think in the comments below? Do you which brand do you like the best? X, Facebook, YouTube? Any people using Instagram? Locals, Rumble? I feel bad for anyone on Rumble. It's a terrible platform. I'm Doug in Exile.